Welcome to Full Steam Ahead, where we examine how science, technology, engineering, arts, and math can be integrated into the everyday classroom in elementary education. I'm Charlotte Arnold. I teach theater arts.
And I'm Cassie Walker, and I teach visual arts. Today we're going to talk to you about how integrating the arts into your everyday classroom can be less daunting. After working with classroom teachers for the last 7 years, here are some of the things that we have found to help you get started with arts integration. Number 1, start with your standards. Arts integration is really meant to strengthen learning and deepen understanding. Adding a drawing assignment to the end of an understanding is a start, or an assignment is a start, and practical when you're just getting started. But if you're teaching about, say, animal adaptations, allow art to strengthen the understanding by having students create appropriate habitats, show those adaptations, and defend their artistic decisions. Starting with your standards also gives you a wider umbrella when you're thinking about what to do for an integration. For example, in this lesson, students were learning the Science Standard 223, develop and use a model that mimics the function of an animal dispersing seeds or pollinating plants. After reading the book Seeds Move, students each were given a mask that then they drew on either an animal or a seed, and it was simple. They just had a pre-done mask and were using paint markers. And then
they went over to theater, they got on the stage, and they acted out the different aspects that they play in the system. Take, for instance, those who had seeds, masks, came up on stage, they grew in the sunlight and in the rain and developed their seeds, and then we had the animals come up and they attached themselves, or they blew in the wind, or they did any of the other things that they learned about from the Seeds Move book. The arts are fun and full of joy. Lean into what your students express interest in. If you have a class that likes to laugh, you can liven up their learning by having them say certain things in a funny voice. If you have a lot of people in your class that like music or can play an instrument, they could use their instrument to do a presentation or be a part of a play.
I think building in flood zones is the worst idea because your house will get wiped away. Ooh, get roasted! Well, building in flood zones could benefit more jobs and houses. I get noobed.
The bit of a podcast that you just listened to connects to a 4th grade writing standard that is write opinion pieces on topics or texts supporting a point of view with reasons and information. They actually figured out their own content for what they were going to be pro or con, and then they had an argumentative podcast with sound effects.
Second, think about revamping formal and informal assessments through arts integration. When teaching a standard, think about how it can be applied to the real world. In the real world, nothing is done in a silo. The arts are often an integral part of application and are a tool you can harness in your classroom. For example, if after teaching about area, you can talk to students where this type of math is used in real life. Then, instead of a test, challenge them to design a room where they need to figure out what size of furniture can fit based on the area of the room. In this example, introducing fractions, a 3rd grade standard, students each were given the task to design their very own pizza slice. They had a certain number of toppings they could choose from, and after designing their slice, they put it together with other student slices and determined how much of the pizza had different toppings. For instance, how many slices in the pizza had pepperoni as a topping. Then, as they wrote down their answers, they were introduced to the idea of a numerator and a denominator. That then flowed into their very first introductory lesson about fractions.
To test reading comprehension skills, students could work together to create a short skit about something that they have recently read and then perform it for the class. Here's an example of a group of 2nd graders performing what's called a tableau, which is just a frozen picture they make with their bodies. We had been reading a story called We Are Water Protectors, and on the page they examined what elements they could represent with their bodies, and it could include animals, parts of plants, or the characters in the story. They then got on stage, choosing which part they were going to represent and represented it. It's a way for them to express how they understand the story and be a part of it in any way that they feel comfortable. Number 3, you don't need a ton of art skills to integrate the arts. Figure out 1 or 2 areas that you feel comfortable teaching from the arts. Use these areas multiple ways. A great example of this is puppetry. A fun lesson to teach your students is how to speak like a puppet. You don't actually need a puppet. just their hands. Once they have mastered the puppet skills, they use their puppets in many different ways. It livens up a think, pair, share. It alleviates the nerves for some students to present in a class, and it encourages students to think through what they're going to say before they say it. In this example, third graders learned about national parks. They chose one park in particular that they wanted to research, and after they were done collecting their data, they wrote a script for a commercial to encourage people to join them at their park. But it's always extra fun to add an element of art to it, so they used puppets to present their commercials.
Finally, starting next year, you'll be able to find integrations included in your grade level pacing guides for Wonders. These ideas were written by elementary art team leads and are made for classroom teachers to do with minimal prep as an integration or extension.
Reach out to the arts professionals in your schools. Brainstorm ideas with them. It benefits students and teachers when thoughtful collaboration is part of a lesson. Thanks for joining us.